Everest, Chapter 12. Medical Log. Psych Profiles. Interview with Cap Sierra. Sierra. Come on, Andrea. Is this really necessary? I'm not one of the kids. Dr. Oberman. I heard you on that 3-hour conference call. They could hear you in Denver. Sierra. Sometimes I say things with emphasis. Dr. Oberman. The final cut is Friday. I'm guessing you were making a last-ditch effort to unload a certain climber. Sierra, you'll never know how hard I tried. I don't want him. Even the kid doesn't want to go. I was as good as told that the whole expedition depends on it. Dr. Oberman, so that's it, then? You did all you could? Sierra, I always said I'd never put an unqualified climber on that mountain. I'd scrap the whole thing first. Do you think it's easy to admit to yourself that you're not as honorable as you thought you were? Dr. Oberman, what do you mean? Sierra, a 15-year-old boy might die half a world away from his family and everything he knows. I could prevent that. But apparently, all I care about is having another crack at Everest. Dr. Oberman, aren't you forgetting something? That 15-year-old is going to have a guide who's the best in the business. If anyone can get Perry to the top, it's you. Sierra, a guide can't stop altitude sickness or a falling chunk of ice. Dr. Oberman, those things are acts of God. They'd have the same effect on the most skilled climber in the world. Summit picked you because you're number one. Because they know that their kids will be as safe as it's possible to be on a Himalayan peak. Oh, Sierra, okay, but just don't ask how it makes me feel. Dr. Oberman, if anything, this does your job for you. That's one less spot you have to pick. Will you be ready to announce the team on Friday? Sierra, I'm ready now. The final team was unveiled late Wednesday afternoon, 2 days early. Ethan Zaff, Christian Alexis, Bryn Fiddler, and Perry Noonan would be traveling to Nepal as Cap Sierra's Summer Quest expedition. Sammy Moon, Tilt Crowley, and Dominic Alexis were going home. It was never easy to tell a climber, young or old, that he or she didn't measure up. But Sierra was actually looking forward to this meeting with Tilt. He had even prepared a speech. You're a great climber, but a lousy person. I wouldn't put you on my team if you were the last kid on Earth. And when that moment came, the Tilt Crowley who sat across the desk from him wasn't the brattish, selfish bully Sierra had come to know and dislike. He was a heartbroken 14-year-old who was having his life's dreams snatched away. Crowley, you've got some growing up to do, was all Sierra could manage. Sorry it didn't work out. Tilt stumbled out of the office, stunned and devastated, managed to fumble his way into his room to pack. It was too late to make it to Denver to catch flights home, so Sammy, Tilt, and Dominic were not scheduled to leave until morning. The last night at the Summit Complex was not going to be a pleasant one for them. Tilt didn't show up at dinner. Sammy and Dominic were there, but without much appetite. Neither had expected to make it, but the disappointment was still keenly felt. I'm sleeping in the TV lounge tonight, Perry said feelingly. Tilt's going to strangle me in my bed. In truth, if there was anyone more shaken than Tilt, it was Perry. The news that had made the Everest team had shocked him to the core. Oh, sure, it had been obvious as he survived cut after cut that there was something more than talent keeping him in the running. But never had he expected it to go this far, like the moment in a bad dream where you're conscious enough to know you're going to wake up before the really hideous part. He had always relied on Sierra to put an end to this, and now he was on his way to climb a killer mountain. That night, he sat in the lounge, surfing old reruns on TV until around midnight, when Dr. Oberman caught him in there. You're in training, Perry. You know you should be in bed. Right, said Perry. I was just on my way. She regarded him intently. And congratulations. For a moment, he looked at her as if she were speaking Greek. Then, thanks, Andrea, thanks. She paused. You know, no one can make you do something you don't want to do. Perry nodded slowly. Good night. She had obviously never met Uncle Joe. If Perry had expected rage, bullying, and abuse, it was not to be. In fact, Tilt was already in bed and did not address a single word to him. All night, Perry could hear muffled sobs coming from the other side of the room, and if Tilt had not been so wrapped up in his own misery, he would have been able to detect similar sounds coming from Perry. It was a curious paradox that one roommate would be crying because he wasn't going, and the other because he was. Dominic zipped up his duffel bag and swung it over his shoulder. "I'll see you in a few days," he said to his brother. Tomorrow, the team would be flying to Alaskan Panhandle for a practice ascent. After that, they would return home for 3 weeks of rest and preparation for the trip to Kathmandu and the ultimate adventure. Chris put an arm around his younger brother's slender shoulders. "You know, Dom, I thought it was crazy you saving all those wrappers and caps, but I'm really glad you were here with me. Is there anything you want me to take to the summit?" Dominic grinned ruefully. "Yeah, me." "You'll get your shot," Chris promised. "You're a great climber. There's nothing wrong with you. That time you won't take care of, try not holding it against Cap." Dominic looked surprised. "It's been the greatest thing in my life training with Cap's hero. I'll never forget this month." The door opened. He opened the door. "I've got a plane to catch." Outside, Bryn was helping Sammy load her luggage into the summit van. "It's called cliff jumping," Sammy explained brightly. "Caleb did it last year in the Canadian Rockies. You're on skis, but not a real run, so you have to jump from snowpatch to snowpatch. If you hit a rock, the wipeouts can be nasty. It's pretty extreme." Bryn was all choked up. "I'll never forget what you did for me." Sammy shrugged. "You climbers are too obsessed with mountains. Mountains, mountains, mountains. There's plenty of adventure out there. I'll find something cool to do." She embraced her roommate. "Sleep tight," she said meaningfully. "I will," Bryn promised. Tilt was already in the van, eyes staring straight forward, his face a thundercloud. He said goodbye to no one, and no one said goodbye to him. Sneezy's video camera rolled on as Sammy and Dominic pulled the door shut. The footage was shaky and of low quality. The cameraman was having his usual hard time watching candidates on their way home. To make matters worse, Lenny Tatsuzik would be driving the van into Denver, so he would be seeing the 3 disappointed climbers all the way to their airplanes. It was extra agony for a tender-hearted guide. The drive was shattering. 2 hours of nothing but mountains. The last thing a failed climber wanted to think about. Dominic tried to envision the scenery of Kansas, or maybe Nebraska, but the winding Colorado highway offered up snow-capped peak after snow-capped peak, stinging reminders of what had been so close, but had slipped away from them. He listened to the never-ending scores and analysis from all the sports stations that the radio was tuned to, mingled with the tiny whining escaping from Sammy's headphones. The only other sound in the van was Tilt's breathing, steady, but too heavy, like a bull about to charge. Tilt's temper snapped about an hour into this drive. In a single motion, he had the tape out of the player and out the window before Sammy could exclaim, "Hey, that was my garbage." "Now it's roadkill," muttered Tilt. Dominic slipped out of his seatbelt and positioned himself between the two of them on the bench seat. "You're going to pay for that," Sammy raged. "Who's going to make me?" sneered Tilt. "The shrimp." "Come on, guys," pleaded Sneezy, trying to watch the road and keep an eye on his charges at the same time. "I know this isn't an easy trip." Sammy fixed her furious gaze on Tilt. "You think because I'm a girl I'm not going to put you through that back window?" Tilt seemed to relish the chance to blow off steam. "You think because you're a girl I'm not going to hope you try?" "Leave her alone," ordered Dominic. "Shut up," chorused the combatants. Sneezy pulled the van over to the shoulder, stopping in a spray of gravel. He turned in his seat. "Cut it out." They were momentarily shocked into silence. No one had ever heard the affable Sneezy raise his voice in anger. It was in that lull that the announcement came over the sports report. It was learned today that Ethan Zaff, the teen who conquered Everest last year, has pulled out of the Summit Athletics Summit Quest expedition. In a case of been there, done that, Zaff has signed on with This Way Up, a team that's planning on a double ascent of Everest and nearby Lhotse. Zaff, the youngest ever to bag the world's tallest peak, promises this year's climb will be made without the help of supplemental oxygen. Everybody froze. The news was so stunning that it brought on a disorientation. The 4 occupants of the van couldn't even remember what they had been fighting about scant seconds before. The whole world had shifted. The final team was no longer locked in. Sneezy's cell phone rang, but he made no move for it. It rang again. "Answer it!" breathed Tilt. The conversation was brief. "Got it, Cap." Sneezy threw the van into a U-turn, squealing across 4 lanes of highway. They were already doing 70 when the left front tire flattened and pulverized Sammy's garbage tape.